Over the past 50 years, the conversation about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals in the United States has shifted from resilience in the face of intolerance to pride in a culture of acceptance. June is LGBTQ Pride Month in the United States. It is a time when Americans commemorate the 1969 Stonewall Uprising, an event that sparked the modern LGBTQ rights movement, and highlights LGBTQ rights as human rights. On June 28th, 1969, patrons of the Stonewall Inn who were tired of constant harassment and abuse from police in New York City finally fought back. While accounts of the night vary, the uprising ignited a national firestorm and inspired widespread activism in support of LGBTQ rights. After more than 4 decades of fighting for equal rights, the movement reached a milestone in 2015 when the United States Supreme Court recognized the rights of same-sex couples to marry. Today, Pride Month is celebrated by millions around the world, with parades, lectures, parties, workshops, and concerts. It is also a time to honor those LGBTQ individuals who have been lost to crimes motivated by bigotry, and advocate for those in the over 70 countries who are still persecuted for who they are.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Appreciate everybody joining us. As you can see, we are not alone today. We do have a very special episode. We even have more guests, not just Liz, but welcome back to the show, Liz. How are you?
Thank you, guys. My favorite podcasters. Always
Yay.
glad.
Nah, we're so flattered. So today is going to be a very special show because we are celebrating, it's June, so we're celebrating Pride Month. And with all the right-wing hate going on and the dehumanization of the entire community, we wanted to take an opportunity to not just show that there are people like us out there that are not like that. You know what I mean? We believe in progress. We believe
But it's
in
important to
freedom.
show on its own.
Right. We believe in the ability to express yourself. That's kind of what the whole point of America is. You should be able to express yourself, especially with your own body, the way you see fit. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to have some personal stories shared. We have an internet superstar on the show as well. So go ahead and I guess, Liz, go ahead and take over from here.
Sure. So I always like to share the reasoning behind doing something, right? So my own personal journey was that I wasn't an expert about anything LGBTQ, but I cared enough to start asking questions of my friends who were part of the community. And I still, to this day, ask questions because I'm not an expert. But our goal at Stop Moms for Liberty is that if people don't know about something, please find out what you don't know. Before you decide that you are against something, get yourself more educated. And I guess you hit on it exactly. The humanization of some of these issues is what we need to talk about. And that's why we've pulled together 3 guests today who I love dearly. And I'm just so excited to have them here today. They have all been on a journey. They are all making impact in the world, and they are all bright lights that need to not be extinguished by some of this wacko stuff out there that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we sometimes focus on all the wacko stuff, but I want to really, as you said, humanize this issue. We are talking about our fellow citizens and our fellow human beings.
Yes.
And they have rights. And when you go after their rights, what's the difference than going after my rights? I'm not part of that community, but I need to understand that big picture, that we need to stop this war against anybody that we consider to be other than ourselves. And the best way to do that is to find out how similar we actually are.
Yep.
And so, we have some varied guests. So, hopefully they'll each pull in a lot of information in their wheelhouse. And I guess we'll just start with our first guest, if that's okay, guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Okay. All right. So I want to introduce Jenna, who is our Director of Diversity at Stop Moms for Liberty. And she is this amazing woman that has had a tremendous journey. So I'm hoping that she will share parts of that journey that will help people to understand that you don't walk down the street one day and decide that you're gay or you decide that you're trans. It is a journey of discovery. And the joy that comes from somebody finally being their authentic selves, how
Mhm.
can we be against that?
Yep.
How can we be against that for our fellow human beings? So please welcome Jenna to the show. She's a dear friend at this point. And Jenna, just take the floor for a little while, please.
Thank you so much, Liz. Yes, I love Liz so much. She picked me out of. I'm out in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I run with people who are fighting against fascism and anti-LGBTQ stuff all the time. And I just want to give a little background about myself. I was born and raised in a fundamentalist Christian household, and I was homeschooled until I was 13 years old. Thank God I escaped.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a private Christian school, so it really wasn't that much better, but it was a step up from being home with my 4 other siblings who I have a great connection with. I always kind of joke that we trauma bonded over
That's real.
What's that?
That's a real thing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I've made peace with a lot of my upbringing, but I know firsthand, watching Christian nationalism take over the Republican Party. Like, I saw this in the 90s when I was growing up.
Yep.
And that's why I try to tell everybody that I can. Like Liz said, I try to humanize us for cis people to understand, because I really truly believe that most people, they're kind of on the fence. They don't know much about us. They're a little bit scared to talk about us. And I want to give them the space to say, it's okay to ask this question. It's okay to ask this. With me, I let them know, hey, most people are not like me. Do not go up to any other trans person and ask us whatever you want, because a lot of cis people love to do that. And I kind of understand from the curiosity aspect. I don't hold it against them too much, but I do, fortunately, I don't get the genital question very often anymore, and that's great. Yeah, it was when I was a baby trans. It was very, very common.
Baby trans? What's baby trans?
Just okay, so I don't know if everybody in the trans community says this, but I refer to it when you're like a baby, like you're just starting out in your transition.
Got it.
And so, like when you're just starting out, everything is so raw. You're literally taking your entire identity and throwing it away and building it back up. And so, and that's why I speak on all my gender affirming surgeries and why they are so helpful, because it helps you come into your own confidence as the person you were truly meant to be. And part of the reason why I started speaking out a lot was A, I started getting more confidence in who I was, and B, I always had a desire to try and bridge the gap with the Christian community, because even though I'm agnostic, I have so much knowledge. I joke that I have forgotten more about the Bible than most people will ever learn.
Yep.
And I know just from people in my life who are still Christian that not only didn't leave me behind, but said, I love you, because Jesus would have done the same thing, right? I know that there's, and it may be naive too, to a certain degree, but I really do believe that if given the chance, most people are good people deep down. And
I hope so.
I mean, me too, right? I mean, I am taking a gamble because, like at the end of the day, I am choosing to believe that humanity is good, even though we have so much out there that tells us otherwise.
Well, I think that risk is a huge factor in all 3 of our guests today. And anyone that decides to live the life that they know is true for themselves and may not be what society expects of them or even demands of them. I think that risk of being yourself is a strength that cis people will never understand. And it's something that I consider to be a defining characteristic of joy. Trans joy, LGBTQ joy, anyone that finds joy in affirming who they are is risking so much more than if they just kept it quiet. So I think that's going to be a theme today, and I'm very excited for that.
That is exactly what it is, because like you said, like we as trans people, the legislation that the Republican Party is putting out, they're trying to go for the Weimar Republic of 1932.
Yep.
And when Hitler burned down, I can't remember his his institute. Magnus Hirschfeld. They burned down his institute.
Pull that name.
Yeah, you know,
Wow. Yeah.
It's getting to that point, and that's why I feel like I need to take such a giant risk, because it's literally, you know, it's literally going to be the end for us.
Yep.
A lot, you know, you talk to any trans person, they'll tell you the same.
Yep.
Well,
And
in truth, Jenna, I just wanted to say that, as I said, the key to all of this is education and experiences. And people in their little sheltered lives may never meet someone who is trans. And so you being willing to put yourself out there, you help us to personalize and to make that human connection with somebody. So it's not just this big boogeyman, something out here. It's Jenna. And you've seen, heard, and loved Jenna. So,
you know, it's funny you say that, because
great.
the Republicans try so hard to just make, because that's what, like you mentioned, you know, Hitler. So let's go there. They try so hard to make certain people seem less human. So in the future, if history repeats itself, when they start doing harmful things and horrible things to people, then they are almost, over a period of time, trying to desensitize people to the reality that they want.
Fascism only works if you have a target that isn't just a good target, but is one that evokes a visceral reaction in the followers of the fascist. So that's why they dehumanize to the point of using vermin. They question the purity of the blood. All that nonsense is tactic number one to achieve a fascist goal. Dehumanize a group and beat them into the ground.
Yep, absolutely correct.
I mean, it's insane if I come across a bigot in the wild on social media, and this person literally knows nothing about me, and it's just, he instantly jumps to the groomer talking point and child mutilation and all this psychotic, you know, garbage. And that's it's exactly what you said. They strip us down to nothing. They completely dehumanize us to the point where they see us as a freak. And when you're able to see somebody as a freak, you're able to support the most heinous, awful things being done to a person. And that's what they want. And that's why I feel so strongly that, you know, I'm not saying that we all have to do it, but I do. I want to go out there and humanize us to everybody as much as I can. So people can say, they're not these freaks. My favorite band's Metallica. I've seen over 100 concerts in my life.
Nice. I used to be a concert goer myself.
Yeah. You
That
know,
was my
like
thing back in
we're
the day.
normal people.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, Liz said, like, most people may never even meet a trans person. But if you watch like Trump rallies, they'll say stuff like, I'm tired of this stuff being pushed into my face. Well, guess what? Your own party's the one pushing the shit into your face, not anybody else. Everybody else is trying to get on with their lives. Your own party is the reason we're having all of these talks right now.
Well, think about it. You're right. People wouldn't
That's a really good response. Yeah.
People wouldn't hate as much if they weren't told to hate. Is bad as this is about to sound, most people are comfortable going through life, living their life, and taking care of their family. And they don't necessarily have much interest in how it relates to them about anything else, right? So it's easy for people to say, well, I'm never going to connect with a trans person or a black person or anyone that's different than me. And you know what? When the people that I identify with tell me that they're a little suspect, well, now I feel safer in my community and more scared of people from outside of it. And it just builds on itself. That's all this is manufactured hate. That's it.
Yep, it is. And,
sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, hate is really easy. You know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of hard work to learn how to reach across the aisle and love people and try to see where they're coming from. It's a lot easier to just sit in your little bubble and hate what you don't understand. And that's the one thing I always tell Christians when I talk to them is, you have Franklin Graham and then you have me. Who is the person that Jesus is going to hang out with? It's going to hang out with me. Because Jesus was the champion of the marginalized.
Yep, has shown that.
That sounds like some woke nonsense to me.
It's absolute woke. I mean, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. Of course, I'm hella woke.
Leftist propaganda. I was actually born in an hour south.
But Jesus was a socialist, and he was a champion of the marginalized.
Thank you. He
And
was.
and he hated the religious elites, the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Yep.
Okay, maybe not hate, that's a bit of a strong word, but Jesus had righteous anger, right,
Yes.
towards
Okay.
people
Yes.
in positions of religious power that misrepresented him.
Yep. And particularly now that's happening, and that's probably one of my strongest objections. Do not use my Jesus, do not use my God to justify your hate.
Yeah.
So that's good. Well, as we said, we want to focus on joy, but it's really important that we also bring in the information and the reality of what's happening. And so our next guest I want to introduce is Tammy. And Tammy will tell us all about herself. And she has studied and done the research, and she's the bomb. She knows what's going on legislative wise and state level wise. And I think that thank goodness for her, because I don't have time to do that research, right? I'm going to rely on experts that are doing the background work that we all need to be aware of. This isn't just the don't say gay law in Florida that made, national headlines.
I wish that was it.
I know. Well, and so Tammy, if you'll fill us in on kind of the current state of things.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me back. First off, guys, glad to be back.
Of course.
If anyone who's seen me before on the show, I always come in with the information and the statistics, so it can be no different today.
Good.
So when we're talking about anti-LGBTQ legislation, especially anti-trans legislation, which is the majority of it right now, we're talking about in 2024, there have been 586 laws proposed against the LGBTQ community. 328 of those are still active. Thankfully, 217 of those have already been rejected and 41 have passed. Now, what's really scary, 586 to June 9th in this year, it was 600 all of last year. So we're on pace to almost double the number of bills that are proposed to limit and harm our existence as there were all of last year.
That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah. And these aren't small things. We're talking about in Florida and Utah. They have literally made it a felony for a trans person to use a bathroom consistent with their gender identity in government buildings and schools, regardless of age. A felony. You can serve jail time, and you probably will get a bigger sentence that Donald Trump will out of this New York situation.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, you're right.
So
that's crazy.
We're talking about in this legislation, most of the anti-trans bills that are being proposed fall into 5 subjects, really. The first one is attacking health care, primarily access to gender-affirming care. That is now, if I check my notes on that one, 24 states have at least total bans, but are facing legislative challenges to those bans as far as the ability to do bathroom or limiting, this one's healthcare, limiting transgender youth from access to healthcare. One state is blocking surgical, all ages. 6 states are trying to make it a felony for doctors to provide any care of any sort to any transgender youth. And
so like psychological help, like even just going to a therapist?
I can't actually quote whether or not that's accurate, but I can pretty much guarantee psychological medication. If it's a psychiatrist, that probably will get you penalized indefinitely for gender affirming care with endocrinological needs.
Well, I mean, what's scary is the slippery slope argument that we kind of touched on, which isn't always the best valid argument, but in this case it perfectly exemplifies what the fascist plan is to keep rolling out more and more restrictive policies. So even if they're only going to attack, not that this is acceptable, the surgical side of gender affirming care, even if they're only going to attack the medicinal side, at some point they're going to say, hey there, psychologist, if you even suggest that that kid can be other than what they're born, you're going to prison. So the slippery slope argument counts when you don't have any basis for your argument. When you're just using it to try and control people, you have no limit to what you're going to criminalize. And I think that's what you're pointing out here, Tammy, is these laws are everywhere and they're attacking every facet of care. And that's terrifying to me.
And the thing right now is they're establishing a baseline. Like, this was first pushed to be everywhere for these bans. And those were rejected by courts enough that it was stopped for now. Now, what to know is, yes, it's limited on government facilities and schools in most of these states, but that's because one state got it through, a court said they're allowed to do that, and now it's in 24 of them. It's spreading because they keep testing how far they can push the limits, what they can set precedent for, and they will keep pushing it further until such a time as there's nothing left to push, and they've just criminalized our very existence. Well, that's their goal.
We talk about Project 2025 a lot, and their position on the LGBTQ community is terrifying. They essentially just want to make it criminal to be anything other than a straight person, essentially. And it just drives me nuts that they're using the religious angle, like you said, the Christian nationalism. They're using the Bible to justify this behavior, but they really want to end democracy, and they're going after everybody. They really are going after. If you're not 100% with them, this is one of those scenarios. If you're not 100% with them, 100%, you're against them, and they'll come. They're ready to come after everybody.
Well, the implications that this creates, not just theoretically, but you are pushing hate further and further through this type of legislation and this type of speech. And it's already been at the point where trans individuals are assaulted at 4 times the rate nationally, or murdered for that matter, 4 times the rate of cis women nationally. And 1 in 2 trans women have either been sexually assaulted or raped because of their identity. And I know quite a few trans women who fit that definition, and it is horrifying and breaks my heart every time. And some of these people are some of my best friends.
Yeah.
It is absolutely heartbreaking to know this. We have hundreds of thousands of trans youth who've been thrown out of their homes, are homeless, been abused. And again, I know people who that are. You can hear me getting choked up just talking about it. It's so scary, and all of this hate is only going to make it worse.
Tammy, if I could just follow up on that piece of it, this is why it is so critical that schools are safe places, because these kids will be thrown out. These kids will be beaten at home if the parents of them are not supportive. And so sometimes a school is the only safe place. And so as people are trying to say that we're making these kids trans or we're making them part of the LGBTQ, no, they are coming to us the way that they are. And they feel safe to talk to someone who is not going to throw them out and is not going to beat them. So this whole mantra that they have that, schools are pushing this. No, schools are the first institution that are really trying to deal with the situation of kids. And they are coming out younger and younger just because there's more information out there and they're being affirmed.
And
that's my story.
Yeah.
That's my story.
Yeah.
I have a clear, vivid memory of being 6 years old in the back of my mom's car, driving across a specific bridge on the way to my family's house at night. I remember what the sky looked like, where I was, and I remember wishing on the stars that I wake up the next morning as a girl.
Yeah.
And that did not leave me ever, obviously, but it was something that I didn't know that trans people existed, which is why it's so important that there's exposure at young ages for people to know that it's a valid identity. They're not alone. And to be able to have those interactions with people that are like them so they don't feel so scared and alone.
This is what this goes to the core of what I have always felt was the purpose of education. It's not just to put knowledge into little young impressionable heads. It's not just to explain math and science and figure out how to, do things when you're an adult. Education is supposed to be a bastion for knowledge of all kinds. And the argument that, you stick to the math and we'll stick to raising our kids. Well, raise them correctly. I'm sorry, because not allowing your kid access to be able to identify with their true self is child abuse at the very core of the word. Okay. And you're not being good parent if you're allowing your kid to suffer because you don't understand that gay kids exist or trans kids exist. If you fight to keep your kid miserable, you are not a good parent. I'm sorry. And I'll take that. This is not a Stop Moms for Liberty stance. This is my stance. If you believe deep down that the best way to raise your child is to make them want to hurt themselves and hate you and run away to school to let their teachers know or find support in their friends, because generations are getting more accepting. That's why kids are coming out younger, because their friends realize that there's nothing wrong with it. But then they go home to a horrible household and feel threatened. So education is supposed to be there to be a supportive structure. That's it.
My kids, like I have 2 kids. Both my kids are gay. And they both came out to me because obviously they knew from, I've never been like that I've never been about oppression. I can't stand seeing somebody punch down on other people for absolutely no reason whatsoever. But like, I knew when my kids were born that I would love them no matter what.
No matter
what. You have to make that decision when they're born. You don't get to change your freaking mind just because they don't identify the way you want them to. And stop imposing, because everybody's different. Like, you have to let people develop the way they're going to. You know what I mean? You can't. I mean, you can try, but then you're going to make like Mike said, you're going to make them miserable. You're going to make them run away. That you could cause them to cause harm to themselves. There's so many different scenarios that are just awful. And all you have to do is love your kids and just learn a little bit. Like Liz said at the beginning of the show, just educate yourself a little bit. That's what I had to do. You know what I mean? And once I did, it's like, then some of the things maybe you can change your point of view on things if you learn about them.
Ignorance is not a dirty word. Ignorance is simply the lack of knowledge. Willful ignorance is a dirty word because that's what causes all of our problems. If you're willing to accept that you don't know something and maybe you could be taught something, that's actually a stronger position. That's a more intelligent position. That's called growth and awareness and understanding that you weren't born with the perfect knowledge of everything. There are things to learn about other people. There are ways of looking at things that broaden all of our perspectives. And if you are comfort in your dark, miserable little hole, please don't have kids.
I mean, what you just said is my story. You're talking about my story because my family was very conservative, in some ways still are. I'm going to have to bring up some of my amazingly validating moments from the past couple months before I'm done here. But I was religious conservative growing up. I had no exposure to the LGBTQ community. When Mike and I knew each other in college, I was homophobic. I didn't know anything about trans people. I would have been transphobic if I had any knowledge it existed. But at the same time, I knew who I wanted to be, and I hated myself so much that right before I met Mike was the first time I tried to kill myself. And shortly after he graduated, before I did, was when I made my second attempt. And thankfully, neither worked because, another 16 years later, I finally got to the point where I had been exposed to the LGBTQ community in positive ways. I had recognized the hate that were in the communities that I was part of and realized I didn't want to be part of that anymore. I couldn't abide that. I didn't want to bring that kind of hatred in. And I don't want to push other people to wanting to try to do the things that I did. That I don't want to see trans youth attempting suicide. And I know why they're doing that. It was the first time in my life I wasn't able to cross-dress because I was in college with roommates, didn't feel it was appropriate. I should have known when our other roommate was talking about their sibling cross-dressing that I would have been fine in the environment, but I really wasn't ready for that anyways. But I'm hitting 39 years old at the time that I came out and realizing that I'd been harming myself my whole life by holding that back and having a partner who, once I told her that this really was a part of myself I couldn't bury anymore, she turned to emotional and physical abuse to try to make me not do that. That was her way of saying, I won't accept this. But when I finally got away, I could finally find who I was. And now I'm able to live authentically. I'm having real powerful relationships with people. I'm largely out because of the Ren Fest in Maryland.
Hell,
They supported me so much. I met so many other trans and queer people. And I know the impact we have walking around with our trans flag pins on. For those of us that are,
yep.
how do I even say this about myself now, the elder parts of the trans community there, we have had people coming out to those of us who are showing ourselves publicly that way at fair,
Nice.
and have grown a social group that's a private closed group, only not even for partners, just for
Good.
the trans and non-binary individuals to help figure out their identities and be able to share their stories and talk. And I know it saves lives.
Absolutely.
And it's so, so important, and gets you to the point where
Yep.
last month, my family had our first family reunion in a decade, and I was terrified to see
Oh wow.
some
Yeah.
of the people that I hadn't seen in a decade, hadn't talked with in really any of that time.
Yep.
I had no idea, other than my family has always leaned right, what that was going to be like. My mom told them ahead of time. They all arrived greeting me by my correct name,
Nice.
correct pronouns, so supportive and encouraging.
That's
My
fantastic.
girlfriend, I'm in a T for T relationship with
Nice.
another trans woman. She is wonderful. It makes me so happy being with her. And she was there with me. They were all going out of their way to engage with and talk
Fun.
with her. And it was just such an amazing experience. And then getting to go down to Pride yesterday in DC and celebrate with so many people that are just so happy to be who they are,
Yeah.
and so many powerful allies that want to support us. It's just so important to have these types of things like Pride Month to
Mm-hmm.
let everybody find those communities that will support who they are and
Yes.
give them the strength to find their reasons for living and to be that authentic person.
Talk
Tammy,
about joy, Tammy.
I was.
mean,
You stole the
thanks for
words,
sharing it.
Liz. You stole the words.
joy.
Tammy,
I mean,
thank
I'm
you for
filled
sharing
up,
all that.
and this will never impact me, right? Because I'm not part of the community. But to hear another human being say, not only did I survive, but now I can go out and make impact.
Boom.
Now I can participate. And I just want to throw one piece out there too, is we do often hear about suicide related to the LGBTQ plus community. And I
Mhm.
want to make it abundantly clear. No one is taking their own lives because they are part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Right.
It is because of what the rest of society is doing to them or not doing for them. Like Tammy
Yes.
said, until she had exposure to, oh yeah, this is a thing, then you
Mhm.
do feel like you're, really against everything. And we have kids, so why is it such a big deal to have a book that has a character, right? To have a teacher wear the pin that Tammy was talking about, to have, parents have a flag in their yard, and
Representation
it's
matters.
taking
Mhm.
care of humanity, and representation is exactly what it is.
I think for too long our society was taught that we should be tolerant of others, which I have always thought was stupid, because when you
Yep.
tolerate something, like, you're low key hating on it at the same time. You
It
know what I mean?
implies unequivocal value.
Yeah.
Right. You still don't like it. You just don't say anything about it. And I think our society's trying to shift to more of an acceptance of
Yeah.
things. You know what I mean? Which
Yep.
is the way it should be. You know what I mean? You shouldn't get mad because a certain person exists and you don't understand it. That's stupid.
Yep. And we have to keep asking that question. So if this happens, how are you hurt by that? Because
Right.
what we are pushing for, the equal rights push, is not taking anything away from other people. Yes, there are issues that we need to have solutions for. We've got bathroom, we've got locker rooms, we've got, extra expenses for businesses sometimes. Those are the practical things that we can indeed come up with solutions for. But until we get to the point where, yes, everyone is equal, everyone should have equal rights, then, don't come at me with the argument about how this is so horrific. Really?
Right.
Why is it horrific? So, well, without further ado, it is now my
You took the
pleasure.
words out of my mouth.
Yeah, to bring in this person. I have spoken with at length, and I have followed on TikTok, and I am just so thrilled because when you think about joy, there are certain things that come to mind. Just kind of this glowing approach to life and focusing in on, just being very classy and really exuding your light. And I can't think of anyone that does it better than Nana Tuckit, who is really a celebrity on TikTok. There she is, girl. And she has a stellar video, and I'm not sure if we have it ready to post today, but please go to her TikTok and see that video. And she talks about herself as a male and herself in her beautiful getup as you see today, right? And still the same person. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter all of these situations, they are still the same person.
Yep.
Still humans and still valuable. So it is my pleasure. Nana Tuckit, tell us about yourself.
Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
Nana.
Oh my goodness. It's like a party up in here.
Yes.
What is that
It is now.
introduction? So
Hello,
kind.
Queen.
Checks in
Right.
the mail.
Yes.
Woohoo.
You make me feel underdressed. I should have gotten.
I know.
Always.
I feel a tad bit overdressed, but
I'm always the
that's
most
Nana's
underdressed.
flavor. So, where should I start? I have so much
Well,
to say. What do you want to
just tell us
know?
a little bit about your life's journey and how you
Sure.
became this infamous Nana Tuckit.
Well, I didn't actually become Nana until during the pandemic lockdown.
Wow.
So it's pretty recent for me. I was just sitting at home. I thought I can't play one more game on my phone. I needed a new creative outlet. And my whole life I've been creative. I've done all kinds of different art forms, and I've sewn my whole life and made clothing and costumes for shows and stuff. But yeah, I just thought, why don't I dress myself up instead of other people and create this fun, warm, caring, sassy, classy, vintage style drag character? So, I could look gorgeous and tell stories on social media and maybe help people learn things they didn't know. So that's how I started. But I should have seen that coming, because when I was a little kid growing up in Iowa on a farm out in the middle of nowhere, my biggest desire was to wear my mom's clothing, to dress in beautiful clothing. I just liked anything pretty. I loved anything beautiful and feminine. So it's just something that has always been in me, and I came that way. Like, I just came gay. I was a queer person when I popped out. Nobody made me that way.
Right.
Nobody groomed me to be gay. That's the way I came. I didn't have any examples in my whole gay people, none. So clearly, that's just the way I came.
There
right?
goes that argument.
And it always confused me, and my parents, I'm going to say this. My parents were not religious. So I did not grow up hearing people tell me I was a sinner and that what I was, or people like me, were wrong. I didn't have that. So, I have a really different experience from people who had to deconstruct from their Christianity or whatever religion that told them they were wrong for wanting to be who they were. So our family had our own issues. Definitely, we had communication. I grew up in the Midwest where you joked with each other, but you never really talked about feelings, right? So I never could figure out who I was really. Like, why are you like this, when everybody on the outside at school and even adults would just pick on me and bully me for being a sensitive, shy, kind, queer little kid who,
it's so terrible.
liked sewing and dancing and beautiful things. I just was, my entire childhood, I was pummeled by that hatred from other people. And inside, I knew who I was right. I knew they were wrong, So I had that confidence within me. I just had to shield myself and protect myself from that. So I was very withdrawn as a kid up until high school. When I graduated from high school, that was the best day of my life, because I knew that's the day I got to be who I was. When I left school, the gates opened and I unleashed my true self. and it felt great. And of course, you know, I still had a lot of attention drawn to me because I was a flamboyant young kid partying and having fun. But then when I got a little older, I realized the attention had dropped off because now I had the luxury of blending into society as an older white cis guy. I had that opportunity, and I did that because I was scared. I was still traumatized by how people treated me. And I thought, now I can just disappear. I don't have to wear crazy clothing. And it was safe until Nana Tuckit was born. And at first, I was kind of all over the place on social media. I talked about a lot of different things. I didn't really focus on one thing. And then it kind of came to this crisis moment. And I thought, you know, I've gained this following. People are paying attention to me. And that's what I wanted. I want to have a voice that affects as many people across the planet as I can. And if I get that opportunity, I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use it. So I had to figure out at one point, what's my focus? What am I really going to choose to say to the world? How am I going to put myself out there?
That's the hard
And I'd already talked to Liz, and you know, we were talking about how interesting it was for you to put yourself out there and the attacks that you face from other people. But I decided that I am going to focus on my community. I'm going to focus on positivity, telling queer people and trans people stories, because like we're talking about, I need people to understand that we're humans and that we all are here doing this together. You know, I love humanity. I love that we're all on this planet trying to figure it out together. And I don't enjoy people's behavior, but I love people, because even the people who are dark and have that in them and that hatred, the potential for change is so great there. And one of my most favorite things about living here on this planet is seeing personal growth and transformation. It's one of the best things we have going for us here. Like the power that provides someone to actually become a good person, a better person. It's why I'm doing what I do. And I just really want to tell these people's story. I want to tell people's stories so that they're human. And like we're talking about, they can understand that we're not just a thing, not a concept. We're not a concept that people can just say that needs to end, that needs to be eliminated. And now, it's great. I just was in Ottumwa, Iowa for Ottumwa Pride. Nice. And it's, normally I'm on social media and I don't really get out there in the world that much, but to be with, this town in like a red state in like a conservative area, and to see these people come out and produce that kind of a pride event like that was so amazing. And the people who knew me from social media would come up to me and just share with me how wonderful it was that I could help them. I feel empowered that I can help them discover who they are and actually want to be that. And it's just the best thing in the world. Like, that's why I want to keep doing it,
How many followers do you have now on TikTok?
I'm not a numbers person, but
good answer.
I think it's almost 300,000 maybe.
So that's interesting because
I'm so jealous. I try so hard.
Well, we're getting there, guys.
Like you said, you have to have an angle. Even what I mean. If you want people's attention, you have to have an angle in.
Well, I really got a burst. My big push for popularity was that same person video, and I created that because I was sitting around one day thinking, isn't it so interesting that Nick can exist in the world like I talked about? I can blend in anywhere. I can have a conversation with anyone about anything, but yet, if Nana showed up, that would be a whole different feeling. Those same people could call me a groomer, tell me I should stay away from their kids. And I thought, I'm the same person. Like, why do we care so much about our packaging, what we look like? 100%. And we don't put enough value on who people really are as a person on the inside.
See, that's what it comes down to, because, and it's funny how this is kind of becoming the theme of today, it is about what defines self. Is self something that someone else can identify through a distance or at a distance, just visually? And then once you get to know someone, you're like, I don't like that person because they aren't what I assumed they are. Well, maybe we need to stop picking from a couple of pre-assumed identities and realize that not everyone is like you. Not everyone is like me. And
Right.
the irony, I find the irony in your story absolutely delicious. And I'm going to explain what I mean in that. You said that for the most of your adult life, you were able to hide in this almost cis-passing or perfect identity of an American man, right? But look at, in my opinion, and I've had the pleasure of meeting you today, and all I can go off is the joy that you exude today. But look at the joy you have found in yourself, finally embracing that inside personality. So I think it's ironic that, you know, you spent so much time not doing that, but now you not only are doing it and helping other people, you're being encouraged to do it. You find more of your identity in being who you are as Nick or Nana. It doesn't matter because, like you're saying, it's the same person. Sometimes people like to dress up. Some people just are different. It doesn't matter. It's who you are as a person, how you treat me, not how I assume you're supposed to be. So
And I feel like everyone.
Oh, she's back.
It kind of baffles me why people are so concerned with who other people are.
Yeah, I don't
why
get it.
I don't you know, on one hand, I understand humanity, so I totally understand how it happens. But at the same time, I think we all deserve to look in the mirror and have what we see looking back at us reflect who we are on the inside. We all deserve that. And those people get to do it. They've been doing it their whole lives.
Yep.
And I feel like what's really happening is that I don't think they like themselves.
Bingo.
I don't think they like who they are. So they have to constantly be projecting this energy outward toward other people. And, you know, a thought I had earlier was talking about all this, you know, stuff happening in the world. The way people want to control people, the way they think they want us to either not exist or change who we are. So what happens if that happened? Let's say they're finished. The agenda is done. Everybody, are they going to just enjoy their lives now? They're going to kick back and relax and think,
because they're trained.
Oh, well,
to
we
hate.
did that. No, they're going to just keep constantly finding something
Who else do we hate?
to take down.
Who do we hate now?
They won't like their lives.
I think that's the bottom line.
They would just be able to leave us alone. And
you know what?
That was totally me. That was totally me while I was religious conservative. I hated everything about who I saw in the mirror. And I projected that onto the rest of the queer community with, you're being a thing I can't be, but I resent you for it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just a boring, just, you know, straight white guy, but I think honestly, you'll think about it. Everybody goes through a journey to self-identify. Everybody does. And just everybody goes through it differently. And I think once we accept that everybody's journey is their own, and that is, you know, I mean, one of the things that we have inherently is the right to just be whoever we want. And I think nobody has the right to take that away from anyone.
Well,
and I want to piggyback. I want to piggyback off a couple points here. Self-acceptance is, for us in the trans community, I'm sure in the gay community, that's one of the biggest things we have to go through for ourselves. You know, these bigots and these fascists, they want to tell everybody that, oh, we don't have any, autonomy whatsoever. We're just totally being brainwashed by the trans agenda and the gay agenda and all these people are out here at us. And it's just the actual complete opposite. When I was 5 years old, just like Tammy, I would sit in my bed at night and I would pray to God and I would say, please turn me into a girl. I don't want to be a boy anymore. And of course, you know, it didn't work. It took me till I was 28 years old. I was a very happy person. I was a very confident person, but I wasn't content in my soul. And it took me a very long time. Like I said, I had a very toxic masculine culture, fundamentalist Christian. I was homeschooled up until, like I said, 13 every day, went to church 3 times a week. Literally, I was so sheltered. Nobody was grooming me. except for the people in church who were grooming to be a good little Christ warrior,
Boom.
right?
Bingo.
And it took so much mental strength. It takes so much mental strength to be trans, to be gay, to be anything outside of the cishet normative culture to say fuck the system and fuck the patriarchy. Sorry,
it's funny because I
you're
think
good.
a lot of what we see is pushback, obviously, from parents and society in general is, yeah, we understand that there's this archetype that we're all supposed to fit into. But I wonder how much of it is some sort of subliminal understanding that the parents themselves have something about them that was stifled, whether it's maybe they're trans, maybe they're gay, maybe they want to be a furry. I don't care. Maybe they just want to be perfectly straight and tap dance wearing pink. I don't care what you do. But I think there's so much fear in letting their kids be who they are, because then they either feel that they missed their opportunity, or the other way, that they failed and didn't make sure their kid became the way they did because they overcame those urges, right? If I went to church enough, or if I just hated gays enough, I could suppress that in myself. So I feel like it's so much about education, but education can't happen like you don't go today everyone's educated. It's a process, right? So you have to hope that there's a generation. Let's take Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who's probably the gayest we'll ever see in our lifetime, and that's a good thing, by the way. Okay,
I love Gen Z.
Gen Alpha is realizing that I've seen videos where Gen Alpha kids are being asked, do you know what coming out means? And they're like, I don't understand. What do you mean coming out? I'm just gay. Why do you have to tell anyone you're gay?
Yeah.
That is so important.
Right.
So when those
That's good,
kids
actually.
have kids, they're not going to be like, you should be man or woman. It's going to be, I don't care what you are, feed the dog and take out the trash. That's where education is important, because it can't just be a button. It has to be a process. And what they're fighting, what the fascists are fighting, is that process. If they want to call it grooming to just educate kids to be better people, fine,
Hey,
call it that.
you know what?
But like
could
a bunch of you said, I think all three of you said, grooming was coming from the community you grew up in that didn't expose you to gay people, didn't expose you to trans or anything, and yet you still are who you are.
Exactly.
So education is about the people who are there to support as much as it is to inform the people who need that support. And I
Remember,
think that's what we're trying to get at.
a lot of the right-wing accusations, remember, is projection.
Of course.
I mean, Mike, we could do a whole series, not even just an episode. We could do an entire series on right-wing grooming. Actually,
how many right-wingers are arrested as pedophiles versus,
listen,
I don't know, zero
we just read
trans
the
people,
story.
zero drag queens?
Did you guys see the video of the little redheaded kid in the background? His dad was giving a speech in Congress, and his kid was making faces.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who this guy was, right? But now they do, because the kid was making. It's a funny video.
It was pretty funny.
Come to find out, I think his name is John Rose. His last name is Rose. He's a congressman. Come to find out, he met his wife when she was 17 years old. He was 41. Then he paid her way through college. And then after she got out of college, they got married and started having kids. That's grooming. I'm sorry, but we could do an entire complete series once a month, twice a month on this stuff. It's pathetic, the projection that they want to put onto another group.
And a big thing I always tell, I always call them normies too, is
normie.
When you're talking to a normie, I always tell them, like, look, man, who are the ones that are obsessed with talking about children's genitals? It's not us.
Bingo.
We don't fucking talk about that ever.
Yeah.
You know,
there is no. Go ahead.
When they come at me and they call me a groomer and a child mutilator, I always go, why are you so obsessed with talking about children's genitals?
It is amazing.
I haven't said about it. They're like, oh, you're so whatever. And they get so flabbergasted. And I love putting bigots on defense, because no one ever puts them on the defense. And when you just give the slightest pushback,
it works.
Everything falls apart. And normies are so turned off by this. Like, it bears out in polling ever since 2015. You know, it's like I go back to what I said. Most people don't really know much about us, but when push comes to shove, when they see such an unhinged assault, all-out assault on our right to exist, most people at the end of the day are going to be like, I don't really care. Leave them alone.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing.
Yes.
We're seeing an overabundance of manufactured hate, and it is backfiring. And,
Right,
and a
and
small
this-
example, a tiny example would be, look what's happening with Roe. We're seeing the backlash of that. We're seeing an incredible backlash of the anti-trans specifically hate. At some point, people are like, could you just make things cheaper and stop trying to
Yep.
screw other people over?
And
Nana,
the
you
thing
had
is
something.
that the thing that I hate the most about that situation is I understand that humans, they're going to be easily manipulated.
Yep.
That's just the way we are. But
Mhm.
those loud voices that are pulling the strings, the ones
Mm.
that are actually taking advantage of that to
Yep.
use the people to do
Yep.
what, to gain their power, control, those are the people that really make me crazy.
Because they are
Moms for Liberty.
insidious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's if for a
Federalist
moment,
Society?
you know, what is Moms for Liberty doing? Their main goal is to drum up fear, to get books banned, to screw LGBT kids, and probably to get classes segregated again if they have their way.
Right.
But
Mhm.
that they're a perfect example of a grassroots, I'm kidding, Liz, movement that is being well funded and using simple fear, parental fear. And again, it's a lack of knowledge, a lack of education, a lack of compassion and understanding. I forget who said it earlier. I believe it might have been you, Nana, who said something about being a sensitive little boy. We beat that out of boys with passion in this country. Okay, if you're a boy that cries because your dog died, some shitty dad is going to beat the crap out of you because my son doesn't cry over some dog. Like,
Mhm.
cry over, if you don't cry over seeing a dog sneeze, there's something wrong with you. Like, come on, like, basic compassion. It's ironic that people want to dehumanize the LGBTQ community. I always screw that up. I apologize. But people are more likely to say, you know what, we should put dogs down when they're sick, but we should treat these humans as if they're less than dogs. So you're trying to dehumanize them, but you already treat things that aren't human better than you want to treat these people. So like,
Mhm.
the ignorance and the fear and hate screw up people's brains so much that their basic instincts of flight or fight are all screwed up. They're not aimed towards the right thing. You should be fleeing fascism, not running towards it. You should be fighting
We
fascism,
don't
not
vote for
running
that
towards
shit.
it.
Mhm.
What was that, Jeremy?
Now, I guess some
We don't
big,
vote for fascism. You know, we fight fascism.
No.
We don't vote for
we
it.
have to fight it. We don't have another choice, or we won't
Yeah.
exist as a nation.
Yeah.
And some big picture thinking, I think, is warranted, because you're absolutely right, Mike, that I don't even know how to phrase this, but what we have to fight against is that somebody got first at bat to indoctrinate a lot of folks in society, right?
Yep.
Mm.
They were first to it. It was a scripted plan.
Yep.
It was, we need votes in one particular party.
Yep.
What can we do? And this is an old model for indoctrination and manipulation. It's that make people afraid. And you're absolutely right. So it's things like books. And I mean, we could do a whole episode just on books, but
Let's
it's
do
just
that.
God, yeah.
false fear. It is a false fear. It is manufactured. And
Mhm.
when you talk about things like genital mutilation, right? I've heard people claim they're doing this mutilation in the schools.
What?
Really?
Would that
Yeah.
be in the lunchroom or in
Where
the shop
exactly
class?
are we doing that? Yeah,
The,
exactly.
the nurse's office has
office?
changed a little bit.
My
since
nurse
I went
was
to
a
school
nice
here.
lady.
Nurse, never mind the office. So it's all of this.
But they believe that.
They talk about, the LGBTQ plus community shoving things down their throats.
Yep.
They're not the ones that are shoving things down their throats. It's this whole manipulated fascist, white national,
Yep.
just
Yep.
extreme Christianity
Yep.
that is actually throwing things down people's
I mean,
throats.
let's face it, these are, to your point, they have convinced people that there are litter boxes in school for kids to pee in. Guess what's never existed? Those. And the irony is that stuff is from like people fooling these people.
Mhm.
And
And
they
you know
don't-
what's actually darker about that?
Yeah,
It is true, but
it is true.
it's there because of school shootings, in case they
Correct.
have to be locked in a room and they have to
Correct.
use the bathroom.
How
That's
freaking
crazy.
funny is I mean, not funny,
I
but
didn't
so
No,
have
I
to
know
do
what
that.
you mean, but that's what's so
No,
dark
it's-
about it.
Okay,
It's
thank
a
you for
problem.
correcting me.
It's a problem perpetuated by Republicans, and they project it on us. That's
Well,
just
what else
like
is it?
That's the
everything else.
solution.
That is a
Fucking
true
kitty
story.
litter.
That is a true story, and it's kind of one of my
Oh.
pet peeves because I'm in
It
Florida.
gives me a
Yep.
headache.
And when young children, this
Mm.
all unfolded after Marjorie Stoneham Douglas shooting.
Yep.
We had to really get deeply involved in doing the active shooter trainings
Ugh.
with our students. And so someone brilliant, we kept having kids wet their pants because a lot of classrooms don't have a bathroom. They have group ones down the hall or whatever,
Yeah.
but you can't go to those during a training. So to me, it is so appalling that they have taken the reality of what was happening in schools, and it was to have little buckets of kitty litter so the kids wouldn't wet their pants.
That's
I
amazing.
was a kindergarten teacher, so this one really
Yeah, but
really tweaks me when I hear that used. That's
awful.
what came out of that. And it was like a the game Telephone. It was like, well, this control this one, and then it just grew into this
so
huge thing of it's so that kids can identify as cats.
so if I may, what
You
you're
can thank
telling
Joe
me
Rogan
is,
for it becoming mainstream.
I don't mention
No
that name on
surprise.
this, Joe, please. That
Right.
guy is a persona non grata. Okay. The guy eats nothing but elk and jalapenos. Shut up.
And
Okay.
testosterone. I mean,
So
and
and
steroids.
testosterone. So
Yeah,
what
he's only out
I'm
for
hearing,
pre-workout.
Liz, is that what we have is a country that thinks guns are more important than women's rights. And those guns, to protect us, we have active shooter drills. And because of those active shooter drills in all ages, we're terrifying the literal piss out of little kids. And the only way to deal with pee-pee everywhere is to have some sort of contraption to contain it. And now that we have that, the right wing, the same people that are making us hope our kids don't get shot in school, are blaming us and making up stories for having the only contingency. Well, I have a different one. Because
That's why
now
it
that
hurts
we
so
have,
much.
well, now
That
that we have
hurts.
Trump diapers, we should just give kids Trump diapers, and then we've solved all the problem.
Oh God, no.
The greatest diapers ever, believe me.
Greatest,
Wow.
beautiful
Very good,
diapers.
Jenna.
They hold a great amount of water. They
It
hold
does
so
just
much.
feel, it
Generation
just
of
feels,
age.
it feels like we're just living in insanity. Like it's just you
Right?
look around, you're like, what are we doing? What is
It's
Any
almost
happening?
like the
thread you
Mandela
pull,
effect. It's
any
like this
thread
is
you
not
pull
my reality. I don't
unravels.
understand what's going on.
Think about
It's
it though.
crazy
Liz,
town.
you exemplified what the state of the country is in. We are in a manufactured crisis that either doesn't exist or doesn't exist but for the lack of effort by the people manufacturing the crisis, who are then blaming everyone who those crises are targeted to target.
But then
What
the
the
real
hell is
crisis
going
we
on?
don't even care about. We just
Correct.
don't even look at the
Yeah,
real
right.
problems.
Can you
All
imagine
distraction.
what would happen in this country if Moms for Liberty from the very get-go had stepped up to be about the gun issue related to schools?
Yep.
I would have been in their leadership, for crying out loud.
Well,
If they
what do you
had
use your
taken
platform for?
Something good. But
Mhm.
instead, they've turned so many in this country, but they are a minority. I will continue.
Yes, they are.
They have turned so many against a public school system, which is one of the
Oh,
greatest
I know.
assets that we have as a country. It is
You
the
can't
only
have a functioning society without a functioning,
you have to.
stable, rational, thorough public school system.
Yeah.
The idea, and
There
not to
won't
go
be
too far
one.
off of this into just schools, but I think it has an impact larger than that. I'll get to that. One of the talking points coming out from certain nominees for president is that, well, get rid of the Department of Education and let the states take over. Okay, so let's for a moment put aside for the fact that once we did that with Roe, we got about a 49% abortion ban in this country. But you can't have a functioning modern society where every individual place teaches differently. What America doesn't understand about itself and its place in the world is states' rights don't mean sovereignty. Okay, that's why the Federalists won, and we have a federal society where states apply, everything applies to all the states, but you could have your own little differences. Other countries don't treat their little provinces or their different towns as different governing bodies. They're allowed to do what they want at a local level, but you have to have a standard education, because what's going to happen when your kid that lives there doesn't have a good enough education to get into college over there, or that school only doesn't accept gay kids, they only accept white kids, and then that college, like, you can't have a society that doesn't have a
There's
functioning
another show
public
for us.
school.
So-
What will happen if we get rid of the Department of Education?
And I think, you know,
on the
who's going to
list, and
suffer?
Donald Trump has recently said that he is okay with doing that. I have the video.
You know who's going to suffer? Kids. Because
Absolutely.
all of this is about kids. If you as a society, if your number one function isn't to prepare the next generation to be better off, to have better protections, to be better educated, and to ensure the future of your country through your kids, then you're doing everyone a disservice. If your kids aren't the most precious thing to you and you don't support them in being the best they are and who they are, no education is going to take hold into a kid who's just waiting for the opportunity to jump off a bridge. And I don't say that lightly.
No.
Tammy, everyone here, you know,
No.
I don't say that lightly. I'm
No.
saying
I know.
it needs to be said. If you don't make sure your kids are happy, healthy, and who they are supposed to be, no education, no indoctrination is going to stick. So let's start with the kids, make a stable education for them, and then love the shit out of them so that they could be who they're supposed to be.
Please.
Why did I
Now,
go into
unfortunately-
education? You're saying it right there. I ended up leaving it because the
Yep.
school I taught at was in a town that had a literal chapter of the KKK and was
Nope.
already indoctrinating children.
Nope.
Mhm.
But I went into it to try to inspire children, to make them grow as people, to make them get the same thing out of music that I did.
Yeah.
How did
Yep.
I not know I was queer going into music school? I don't know. It's
So,
so
I hate
important
to-
in education.
Yeah,
and
I want to touch on.
still-
I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
I still have
just
so
wanna
many
touch on-
connections in the education community that will fight for that, and it's so important, and
Yes.
we need to keep it at that level.
We do. We need to fight. So a couple of points, because I know we'll start wrapping up here. When you talk about women's rights, we need to understand that women's rights are exemplified in the three faces at the bottom of the screen here, right?
Absolutely.
And what's to say if any of those rights, because they happen to be either gay or transgender or in drag, if those rights are taken away, what's going to stop it from my rights being taken away next? Because it's not only a dehumanization of these three individuals, it's a dehumanization of women all over. And that's an important part. And that's how we come together on issues, right? We have to stand up for everyone else because in essence, it means we are standing up for ourselves.
Bingo.
Right.
And it
'Cause,
has
I mean-
to. Yep.
I mean,
And-
let's be honest. They're already coming after people of color. They're coming after women. They're coming
Absolutely.
after gender identity. They're coming after sexual orientation. What's the matter? Eventually, they're going to come after you because they don't like the kind of music you listen to. I mean,
Exactly.
where does
Hey, that rap music.
authoritarianism does not end. It continues until everybody.
Those video games and that rap music will turn our kids rotten.
They've tried it
One
before.
thing I always
I have a son that's a big rap person, and I'm kind of like,
Same.
"Ooh, don't listen to that." Sometimes
I'm a hip hop person myself, but
Yeah.
it's got to be the
Tupac's
right
my number
kind.
one.
I want to make
Um,
one comment
it.
about each of our speakers.
go ahead,
and then
Liz.
I know, guys, that you have to kind of wrap
Yeah,
things
well,
up here. I wish we had,
unfortunately, I gotta
5
go, yeah.
hours that we could. Do
I
that.
know.
This is to Tammy. Tammy is able to bring calmness and reason and statistics and background into what she's talking about. This isn't just that she's stepping up and saying, "Hey, look at me. Hey, you need to give me my rights."
Nope.
She is stepping forward on behalf of really all of humanity in the work that she's doing. So thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it so much. And Miss Nantucket, I've told you this prior when we were talking before the show. When I first saw a video, I saw my mom. I saw the silver-haired beauty who was immaculately dressed. And I think that you personally can move so far forward for so many people in understanding what drag is all about. And the quality of the materials that you have put out, I'm just amazed at the
Oh, thank
level
you.
of product that you put out, because it's so well researched, and it's just so, for lack of, it's so smart, and it's so informed.
I'm
And
smart
it's,
because of all those great teachers I had.
well,
There you
you're
go.
To be
here, right?
nicer to the teachers.
Yeah, yeah.
I had
But
great
it's
teachers.
such a great mission that, they like to throw around that, the pole dancers are out there and they're indoctrinating the kids, and, watch out for drag brunches and everything else, right? The
I'd
sensationalistic.
love to
But
go to
that's
a
where the
drag brunch.
misogyny plays into this.
Exactly.
Because I don't show a lot of skin, and I have people comment, "Oh, well, I like you. You're okay." But if, I don't want to see people in a G-string. This is misogyny, people.
It is. It
You
is.
can't
But you're
say
such
that.
a beautiful example of why we need to shut up and listen sometimes. And I want to thank you for serving that role. I think
Oh,
it's
thanks.
amazing. I find you to be a tremendous teaching tool. And that's, of course, right up my alley, because as much as these guys just pointed out all these attacks going on, we're coming too. And we
That's
are
right.
attacking too, because
We are
we are
not
on the right
afraid.
side of history and on the right side of humanity. And my beloved Jenna, it is so astounding to me that your I'll say maybe main focus, but one of your focus areas is that you want to do that reach out to the faith community, because unfortunately those in leadership and in power positions within the faith community are totally fueling so much of what is going on, and that's to have their followers believe in that fear factor that they want to lace through the Bible, and all of that kind of stuff. And when you have a person like you that can have those conversations, and even if it's just one or two people here and there, it makes such a difference, because that is one of the enemies. This push of this white Christian nationalism stuff that is fueling everything else. And so
Yep.
thank you for doing that. And of course, my dear, she is our lead of diversity within Stop Moms for Liberty. And it would be really bad of us to have, and I'll just say it as it is, right? A white Christian female led diversity team.
There you go.
And so at Stop Moms for Liberty, we really do want to do the work that needs to be done, but we want to also do it properly. And having a voice of experience in roles like the one that you have agreed to take for our organization is making us so much stronger. So thank you for that, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to always remind people that the only reason why I'm marginalized is because I'm trans. I have a lot of privilege because I'm white, and I try to use it as much as I can. I always remind people when I'm talking to Christians, especially, I tell them fascism is so simplistic. It seems so scary, but it really is so simplistic. These people are not as smart as you think they are. If you look at the cabinet, they were fucking nuts. And so if a lot of what works is just using basic empathy and appealing to people's emotions. If you are able to just, that's why I try to reach out and bridge the gap, because they'll see me and go, oh, she's not that crazy. And in fact, once they start to get to know me more, they go, these people that told me she's crazy, they're the ones that are crazy. Because how could they think she's crazy?
Yeah, it's funny. I usually get the opposite reaction.
Exactly. How could they think that?
They should be me, and they're like, "This guy's crazy."
You didn't warn me.
This dude's nuts. What is wrong with him?
Exactly.
I guess I'm on this touchy-feely point right now in our conversation. So I have to thank Jeremy and Mike. Jeremy and Mike have this dream of having this podcast that will blow up, and it is starting to happen, right? People are taking notice. We had shows before that had absolutely no comments in them. And so people are engaging, people are watching, people are sharing their work. And I love to say they're my ZZ Top guys. They are.
I don't even like ZZ Top.
Yeah, they're our go-to podcasters. I was being asked by so many people in our movement, do a podcast. And I'm like, okay, yeah, when am I supposed to do that? And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have like-minded folks that will allow us to put together shows like today's that are so impactful and so important in the work that Stop Moms for Liberty is doing. So thank you, both of the
That
guys.
is probably the best compliment I've ever gotten in my entire
That's
life.
all
So
we
thank
want.
you very much. I'm actually getting a little misty.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
No,
our goal.
boys
That
don't
wasn't me.
cry.
Oh,
Boys
sorry,
don't
sorry.
cry.
Hey,
No, that's
I'm
a
gonna
great.
break-
That's a great song
I'm one
from
of
The
those.
Cure. Boys Don't Cry.
You know, it's
That's
funny
it.
that I gotta say this. Like, once you become comfortable with yourself, and I guess that's with anybody, then I don't know. It changes your perspective on things. It really does.
Yep.
It does.
And I
I've
think
always
we
been a
should
big
never
teary idiot.
just never diminish somebody else's journey, because everybody else's journey is different. Just because it's not the same journey you took does not mean
No.
that in any way it's less than what you went through. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we need to start
Isn't
pointing
it
out. And I appreciate
unto
everybody
others?
coming on the show. And I'm
Hey,
glad we
I-
got a lot of comments. Like, yeah, we started this 7 months ago. We would get like 10 views on an entire episode.
Yeah.
And now we're getting,
I think
you
it was
know,
on
we're
one of
getting
those
there.
episodes
You know,
way
it's
back at the
true.
beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It had
Right?
like
Yeah,
90
Liz
followers
has
at
been
the
with
time.
us since the beginning, since we started this entire adventure, and we've done it with, you know, just two guys, a couple laptops, and a message. That's really all
But
we're trying to do.
the message we're trying to put out, and Liz, I can't thank you enough for saying those kind words, because I am so scared of anyone thinking that this is like a vanity project or something we just want to do to get, views. Like, we're concerned with views because we want our show to grow, because we've always wanted our show to be a platform for people to see that they are not alone, that the voices that are in your head that are screaming, trust me, we're screaming, and we'll be the ones to scream it out loud. Just come on and scream with us. Like, we really want this to always be something that anyone could be comfortable to come on and speak truth, good, positive, care, loving truth. So, Liz, we couldn't have done a lot of our shows without your help, honestly, because you've given us
absolutely
so many great opportunities to meet amazing people that we now consider part of our little network. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we now can't wait to share more content that we never knew existed. We can't wait to talk with all of you again, have everyone on the show again. We just love doing this because we get to meet amazing people that are going to go vote for the right person in November.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
Now,
a big part of it. Somebody in the comments asked about starting a chapter of Stop Moms for Liberty. Go to our website, stopmomsforliberty.com, just all spelled out.
it's actually in the description of the video if you need it.
Okay, thank you. And then there is an interactive map where you can see where we have different states that have groups, and sometimes as drilled down as having counties have their own groups. And if you don't find your own, reach out to me. My email is on the website, or stopmomsforliberty@gmail.com. It's all spelled out as well. It's all lowercase. So it's pretty easy to become involved, I'll say. And it's important. And, this fight back is so huge, and there are so many issues, but it's all connected, because this is about putting voice to the majority of the United States of America, because they are not in the majority. The majority of people want people to be okay and to have rights. The majority of people want women to actually be respected and actually have all the rights that they should be afforded. And they want public education as an option. They don't subscribe to the BS that's being put out there. And our mission is to spread information as much as we can. And I'm so glad for today, because hopefully some of your viewers, and I know that this will now be shared out as well beyond today. And I think it's just remarkable, and the guests' stellar job in, representing not only yourselves, but representing what is right.
I was really
thanks
looking
for everybody
forward to
coming on and taking the time. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited. I got invited to hang out with all of you.
Heck yeah.
Right?
So nice to meet you all, and Jenna and Tammy. And I hope that we can do this again. I hope I get to see you all again. It'll be so fun.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I just want to say I agree with Jenna and Liz. Like, I think overall humanity is good, or at least wants to be good. Some people are just very misguided, and we need to pull them back in the right direction. Some people are lost, never to be seen again, but whatever. It happens. So, but thank you everybody
Yeah.
Right. Thanks everybody for coming on the show. We hope you guys
Thank
enjoyed.
you.
If you could please like and share this video.
Yes. And
If you want to help
subscribe.
us increase
Yep,
our reach,
subscribe.
and subscribe.
Subscribe.
That's all we need. So other than that, we'll be back on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Doing our usual programming. And other than that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks to you, our children and grandchildren are growing up in a world that is far more just, far more open-minded, far more humane. But here's the hard truth. For all the hard-won progress you have made, for as much as we can celebrate how much better things have gotten, this fight, as you know, is not nearly over. By the way, too many, particularly trans women of color, are being murdered. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. Vice President-elect Harris and I are committed to being the most pro-equality administration in history.
Flanked by his defense secretary and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, President Biden ended the ban on transgender troops today.
The Biden administration is reversing a Trump-era policy relating to health care, HHS, saying federal law does protect gay and transgender people against health care discrimination.
I'm proud to lead the most pro-LGBTQ equality administration in U.S. history. But we must protect the gains we've made and fend off the cruel and unconscionable attacks we're seeing now to ensure that everyone enjoys the full promise of equality and dignity and protection. The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families, it's simply wrong. And I said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president so you can be yourself and reach your God-given potential.